Did you pick up Jorge Lopez, the Baltimore Orioles starting pitcher? What about Patrick Wisdom, the Chicago Cub first baseman? Well, they were amongst the recommendations last Sunday on the live stream. Get it together, because tonight we're talking about MLB news, notes, results, and what dynasty owners should take away from the first 50-plus games. It's time for Dingers!
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's definitely not Marcell Ozuna that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs, joined again by Robbie from the murder room.
I don't feel very good now. My seat's a little hot. You went.
I mean, he deserved
straight to the dick with that one.
Comment. Yeah, right. Every bit of that comment he deserved.
100%. Well, let's just Marcell Ozuna. Drop him.
What are you doing, man?
Atlanta's got to do everything in their power to get out from the money on that contract, and it is just horrific if the allegations are true, and that is no way to treat a lady or to act in public, act in private. Disgusting. If it's not true, there's going to be quite the case to get his name back.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do, because it's not like a lot of the other cases around domestic violence have been alleged, right? There's not a ton of like live scenes. So this is really the first one where there's like real like authenticity behind the he said, she said. Like obviously there's been battered and bruising and a lot of things there, but nobody's visually seen this before. And now you have a law enforcement officer that visually saw this occur. So I got to imagine his career is over, like done. Like
absolutely.
Doesn't matter at what level. Like I don't think there's another game of baseball played for Marcell Ozuna.
And there are enough things that happen in pro sports where, you talk about second chances and things of this nature. But there's also contractual obligations and millions of dollars and all these other things. And I think because of Ozuna's financial contractual situation and whatever happens, just strictly speaking from baseball, MLB, he should be out. And dynasty, like, I don't know. I think he only is not dropped where I do own him simply because he was hurt beforehand. So I've just left it thinking I'm going to see what exactly occurs, but I can't imagine he's going to stay on Atlanta. We've seen teams drop trade, do whatever based on allegations or charges dropped, and like there's stories we don't know, right? There's stories we don't know about. But I don't know, man. I can't talk about this anymore. I don't like it. But I do like drinking.
Well, I think we can definitely find a certain way to do that.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
I feel like that was a good pop on my side.
Sounded good. As soon as I popped this, I was like, well, that's a little hoppy. It's a little hoppy. It's not supposed to be hoppy. It's
is it Bud Light?
No, it's not so yeah, I do have, so if you are watching this on the live stream, everybody, I do have the Budweiser, which I went to small town Ontario. I went to the grocery store in small town, and they also have beer and alcohol sales there. So I went in with my kid after we dropped off a hammer drill that my buddy had let me borrow to, dig some holes in the basement. You don't need to know why I'm digging holes around the murder room. Okay. Not important. Anyway, so I said to him, let's go pick up some beers because Daddy's podcasting tonight. And he said, I want a beer. And I said, well, you're 5, so no, but you can help me pick some out. So he picked out, good boy, he picked out the one with the Blue Jay on it, but just happened to be Budweiser. So it's second beer tonight, not promoting the Bud, but I do have Cowbell Brewing's Doc Purdue's Bobcat. West Coast Red Ale, 5.5%. This is right up old Mason your face, Jonathan Mason's alcohol percentage. We know he likes them hot and heavy. But this one says Doc Purdue's was Blythe's veterinarian in the late 1880s who had a penchant for collecting exotic animals and a love of drink. I don't think this is going to end well, Ty. When once cut off for being overserved at the local saloon, he marched home and returned with a bobcat on a leash, threatening to let it loose if he didn't get another drink. Oh, okay. Well, that's better than
much. That's too much, though. If I have to turn the page on my beer to read the description, that's too much.
Well, I thought it was going to have something more along the lines of death with the animals rather than threatening death with an animal. So I'm okay with him threatening with the bobcat. Now I'll let you know how it tastes, but what is it that you will be indulging with tonight?
I now have an empty bottle in front of me of Basil Higgins, so that means I get to move on to my next drink of choice, which
green tea.
I'm sure some of you can understand, and the long-term listeners know what the next bottle will be. But for those of you that are new to the show, welcome. You'll find out next episode. But where can they
There's
find
the
us,
hook.
Robbie, if they're new? Segue. Go.
What?
Where do they find us?
Oh, I'm sorry. Twitter. You can find us at Dingers Pod on Twitter. Find Ty at Tourney Boss. Find myself at Robbie Baseball 1. You see it written right down there. Instagram, same thing, Tourney Boss, and for me, Robbie Baseball. We do things
anywhere at Tourney Boss.
At Tourney Boss,
even on MLB The Show, if you want to get absolutely dusted.
There you go. Oh, if you want to get dusted. Interesting.
I will throw down.
Well,
and if I don't throw down, I will just throw at you, one of the two.
And if you play MLB 2K11 on Nintendo Wii, you can find me. My avatar is a bearded dude with glasses. So fine.
I named my to be a pro guy. He's 6'11" with a beard like mine, and his name is Jimmy Changa. But there wasn't Changa as like the audio thing that you fill in,
right?
So he's Jimmy Choo Choo, which is amazing.
Oh, that's nice.
It actually is really catchy.
Is he? So he's a pitcher, right?
He is a two-way player. He's a
Obviously.
Superstar, and he absolutely rakes on anything in the bottom half of the zone because he's 6'11", I cannot get to the pitches up regularly. So I just hunt the bottom of the zone, and the computer throws me a lot of pitches down there.
I thought it would be funny, for him to get hurt and to go on the Tommy John train, and then you could just choo-choo on the Tommy John. Well, anyway, let's get through. We've got a lot to cover tonight. So originally we did the last 2 second episode weeks, done a catch up for everybody because thank goodness prospect minor league baseball is back. So all those prospects that we didn't get to see last year and were like very hard to find reports on until the 60-man camps were over and all those things. We got results. So we did hitters 2 weeks ago. Last week we did pitchers. And MLB.com, Ty, I don't know if you saw this. I tweeted out right before the show started. They posted up basically what we did last week in written form, which made me feel really good because about half the players on their list we had talked about a week ago. So I was really happy with that. And I hope that you, our listeners, were able to make some astute decisions after having a listen to what we had to say, whether you decided to go ahead and pick somebody up, deal for them in trade, or drop someone that, things may have been a little misleading. Steven Gonzalez is one of those guys who I'm watching closely because with Boston in their current situation, I can absolutely see him getting starts. I just don't know if it'll be like 3 or 10. And the fact that he's walking a ton of guys is something I'm trying to watch him. But anyway, we just mentioned it. I thought it was kind of nice that, MLB.com is doing the same thing for all the generic baseball follower people, because as we know, Ty, a lot of dynasty players, for some reason, seem to value what is printed on MLB.com and take it as fantasy relevant.
Yes.
Which is just...
It's not true. It's baseball posts, right? So... But it's a good, interesting note because you and I have had a lot of debates over the last couple months, just watching other large platforms repost things that they tag as dynasty but
Yeah,
yet they
they're
update it
writers, they're
every other week.
podcasters, they're sites. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not what Dynasty is. Dynasty is a long-term game. So to have a Dynasty list that updates regularly, like they had players moving, like in won't name the platform, but you should probably know it if you're in Dynasty. They're moving guys like 180 slots in season.
Right. In
Like,
the inside top 500 lists.
yeah, what are you doing?
Multiple sites though, Ty, and multiple writers for those sites that are doing, and there are also very popular sites that are doing very similar things because they think that that's really important content, and I think it gets clicks because people see Dynasty and they think it's harder to find, but it's essentially looking a lot more like redraft because the recency bias is just being crushed. Like Aldolis Garcia was on no one's list, including our own. He was dropped. You know, he came out of nowhere, came out of the ashes. But you know who else did like a decade ago was Edwin Encarnacion. Same thing. Toronto got him. They traded him to Oakland. Oakland put him on waivers. Toronto picked him back up via trade, something, and his value could never have been lower. And then he was able to sort something out. Well, that's what Garcia's done too. That's great. It's not the job of any fantasy analyst to pick up on every single Aldolis Garcia, but we try to find all of those other guys and talk to you about them before the season starts. The fact that we're seeing certain places rank these guys ridiculously high. I heard, was it the Welsh and Bogman? I think on one of their more recent episodes, we're talking about adjustments and redraft worthy adjustments. And I thought that's a perfect conversation. Like, you know, those guys do a great job. And this is a great conversation to have. If you're talking Dynasty, I don't need to hear Aldolis Garcia somewhere in and around the top 100, you know, top 200 players. It's great that he's doing really well right now. There are tons of guys who do this all the time in different facets and different ways. It just fades away. And in Dynasty, you should not be making any significant trade for Aldolis Garcia, assuming you're going to get that same level of production. Like bank what he's got, like Ty talked about a couple of weeks ago with Trevor Rogers. Enjoy what you've had with him. Consider that to be the best of him right now, and anything beyond is a bonus. Garcia, to me, who's a much, much easier waiver wire pickup type guy, is in the exact same position. So getting a little crazy with those guys can turn things sideways. And it's harder for us because although we, you know, try our best to be out there amongst the fantasy community, we have good guests that come on with us in the off season, talk a lot of stuff. It's hard to pick up traction when you are a host site, when you are also now having your writers go on to podcasts that you're doing and you're promoting the same dudes over and over and over again to the point that like they're just everywhere. So good for them for getting that platform. But at the same time, like, it's just like
it's nauseating. Like,
just seeing how much people are saying, oh, prospect pitching, it's not important anymore. Like, I don't have guys that are ranked. Like, I don't have this many guys. And we had this conversation before the season started. Somebody had, I think it was less than 15 in their top 100. And I said, well, like, I've got 34. Yeah. Like, if you're not going to value starting pitchers, you're not going to win in Dynasty. Well, yes, it takes longer. Go ahead.
We talk about this in the draft strategy, right? Like,
right.
This is literally my playbook. Like, if you say pitchers suck, well, I'm going to go get them all, because then when you realize you don't have any pitchers, I'm going to trade them for 2-year good players, right? Like that. It's commodity game, right? And you know, a lot of that has value. So to rank a dynasty list without a balance is insane, right?
Well, we avoided doing it, right, Ty? We didn't do a top 100. We did hitters, pitchers, because you should be putting them together. And it's not our job to say you with your dynasty team need to value this hitter more than this pitcher. You can look and be like, well, you know what? Like, I do have, I don't know, whoever, Jared Walsh headed into the season, right? He's my first baseman, and I'm not sure if he's going to really hit or not. So I've got this high pick. I'm going to take Spencer Torkelson because I'm just not sure. That's not a bad thing to do, right? You're getting that guy. Now, on the other side, you were like, oh, maybe it would be Max Mayer. Maybe that would be the guy I would take, or something, you know, to that degree. There are those conversations that you, as the dynasty owner of your team, have to sort out that part. But what we tried to do was to say, here's who we think could be the most productive over the next 5 years. You sort out between that what your value is. And if you don't need outfielders, ignore the outfielder part, right? Like,
and it's your league format, it's your roster composition. There's 100 different things that go into that. So I'm with you. I just think it's a disservice. So, you know, I've been quiet about it. I don't know how much longer I can be quiet about it. So this is
it's hard,
but it's really hard.
We got it off the top, and we're 15 minutes in, so we'll move into news and notes, which is what we said we were going to do. So, Ty, the Mike Tauchman blockbuster trade with San Francisco is now complete. I don't even know if Tauchman's hitting over 200 for the season, but anyway, interesting note that prospect Conor Cannon, who we have mentioned before, is now a Yankee. So Conor Cannon moves on over. So let's start to watch what goes on with Conor Cannon. As a Yankee, we've seen nothing but poor performances, low OPS, low OBP from Yankees. So Conor Cannon could easily slide himself in to the Yankee pinstripes over the next couple seasons if he's able to manage. And that would be a steal for the Yankees. And they cleared out some of that excess outfield that they had. So interesting one there.
Decent performance in 19 in low A and rookie ball, right? Like small cup of coffee in low A. So we need to see some development. We want to see him in double A, right? At some point this year. That's when we'll get excited about Conor Cannon, when he hits double A.
Definitely.
Which I think we'll see him at some point if he doesn't start there. Like Yankees don't have a ton of first base or power depth. So Conor Cannon's going to get a shot because Mike Ford's not enough, and Voit can't stay on the field. So that, once you consider that, Connor could be a quick mover and, could be launching cannons out into the right field bleacher.
Yep. Now here's one of the guys that could serve them up to him, Wade LeBlanc, who signed a minor league deal with Texas. I fully expect with Texas's terrible rotation for LeBlanc to get time. Now, ideally, for anyone who's in like desperation mode, that would be as a starter, but just note him. He does have stretches where he can be a serviceable guy. I mentioned off the intro of the show, Jorge Lopez, who did have a very good start with Baltimore this week. He has a second one coming up on Sunday. I can't remember where he is on Sunday, but it doesn't matter. Wade LeBlanc and Jorge Lopez are kind of in that same class where you can find value if you need it. Luis Severino starting a rehab assignment on Sunday, speaking of injured Yankees. So that would be good. Marcell Ozuna, we did already discuss. That's done. Thor has been shut down until mid-July. That sucks. If you were thinking earlier this year, any redrafts, like you were going to pick him up and he was somehow going to win you the league by being an ace down the stretch, your dreams is dead. You might want to try to get him off to somebody else in a keeper league now who might be thinking more about next year, because Thor has disappointed several big league dynasty owners for 3 years in a row, as someone said in a chat this week. And then he traded him in a contract league and also gave up, I think, a third of his salary or something like that, just to be done with them and to get a couple of peripheral type, AAA prospects, because he just didn't want to deal with that anymore. And I understand it. ILs in certain leagues are small. Thor being on it for another 6 weeks at minimum is also going to hurt, because you assumed he would have been back at some point around when he is going to only start throwing again. So you've got that extra time. Some fun ones here, Ty. Joe Adell leading all of minor league baseball with 12 dingers. It's too bad he's no good. Too bad he's no good.
Yeah, I mean, he's still striking out a bit, but this is exactly why the Angels have not rushed him back up, right? I mean, This is, we see Kalenic struggling a little bit in the pro level. Like, this is why Adell was held back, because he's got like the power's there, the talent's there, strikeout rates are there. So he's got to deal with that before he'll be ready to be a professional. But the power, he's going to be great. It's just not yet.
Yeah. And last year, because he was up so long, he's no longer considered an MLB rookie, but based on at bats in all of your dynasty leagues, he should still be rookie eligible. So if you're in contracts leagues and if you're using Fantrax, he'd be on a first. If it's CBS and you just have like minors or majors, obviously he's in the minors, so he's a minor leaguer. He is a good guy to approach now about buying, because all of that hype is off of him. Like, look at what's happening to Mackenzie Gore right now. And that was Joe Adell a year ago. And now look at Joe Adell, like Ty said, not riding the ship, but becoming a good professional. And it's nice, he's got 12 dingers for the year. So that's great in a little over a month of play. So Zach Green leads AAA East with 26 RBIs. He does have a 965 OPS, 263 average, and 9 dingers. Jose Siri leads all of minor league baseball all of AAA baseball with 31 RBIs. He's with Houston. We talked about him before. Let's see, did it a 353 average, 1,006 OPS, 5 home runs, and 4 stolen bases for him, which is good. Well, and Gunnar Henderson. Yeah.
Before you move on, like, how long can Miles Straw hang out?
Right. When Jose Siri's doing this.
Yeah. Like that's a very real question because like I haven't checked in on Miles Straw lately because I own exactly negative 10 shares of him.
Well, he kept getting hyped in the offseason. So everybody in Dynasty was done with Straw, and everybody in redraft was getting all excited about stolen base potential. So then that crept back into those Dynasty owners, and nobody wanted to deal him to give him up. So he wasn't really moving, but he has not performed as expected. I think he had a bunch of steals in spring training. I can't remember exactly what it was. The whole thing with him was supposed to be leading off stolen bases, right? We've never heard that before, where that plan doesn't work out. But Jose Siri, as we've talked about on the last, he's now production, right? Production's happening, and 5 categories.
I'm not even a little bit surprised by this production from Miles Straw. Like, you know, there's not a lot of track record here, you know, to get excited about, you know, like a high end 240 with a paltry OPS. Like, I mean, I'm not even remotely shocked here. Like, there's enough of a sample, you know, so far. Like, you have 400 at bats with no real power in very mediocre stolen base totals for a guy that's going to rely on that. You know, I guess shouldn't say mediocre, but it doesn't balance out enough. He's had 22 stolen bases and 400 at bats, which isn't bad. But
it's not leadoff hitter impact player good though.
No,
right?
240, 617 OPS, right? Yeah. Like that's not gonna cut it. So, you know, stolen bases don't matter unless you're seeing 750 on the OPS, in my opinion.
Well, I would say that level of stolen base for sure. And somebody who I want to talk about, maybe we'll have to find a way to do it on the Sunday show, is my boy Nick Madrigal, and how my whole thing was that La Russa was supposed to be a stolen base guy, and how he, like, to date, Madrigal has 1 stolen base, but it's what's happening and how he's being played, and how those things can kind of hurt a guy like Madrigal who needs to be unlocked. And then there are other guys who are getting green lights that, you know, maybe shouldn't. So anyway, that's something for Sunday. So leading all of minor league baseball is Gunnar Henderson, the shortstop with Baltimore, who we talked about before. He's got 35 RBIs with a 337 average, a 1087 OPS, 8 home runs and 4 stolen bases. He's like minor league baseball MVP level right now. Look at him in your dynasty leagues. I think it's important for a guy like this who's at low A to buy early, so that you don't have to pay a max if this continues for the year. And those people that we were mentioning beforehand, when they're writing all of their dynasty reports and doing all those other things, guys like Henderson get missed. They're low A, people avoid them. But when you look and see 5 category production, that's a good thing. We know stolen bases drop off when players get up above high A. And we'll see that here. So in low A,
for a quick second while I finish one last piece of research here.
On Straw?
Do live here. No, on Gunnar.
Oh, okay.
Okay, never mind. Nope, it wasn't. I was hoping that Gunnar Hoagland was Hender Gunderson, and then we could have Gunnar and have those kind of reversed. Instead of Gunnar Henderson, Hender Gunderson would have been awesome. But I got the Hoagland name completely incorrect. So I have been bounced.
Correct. Okay. So stolen base leaders in low A, we've got a 19 stolen base, Braulio Vasquez with Atlanta. That's all he's got, stolen bases. 16 stolen bases for Nazem Nunez with Miami in low A, and that's all he's got. The rest of the line's all, you know, average under 230, blah, blah, blah. Go up to high A, we've got Cameron Eden, Toronto, 17 stolen bases, 258 average, but only a 684 OPS. So, you know, that's like that empty average stolen base guy.
It is one thing to note, though. It is interesting that we're seeing a lot more of these light hitters back in baseball, right? Like the Madrigal, you're starting to see it trickle back into the low minors. So it's a really interesting pattern to watch for moving forward. Like as the league shifts, like, you know, trading some of your stolen base guys that are maybe peak value, right? If there's more stolen bases coming back into the league, which it looks like, just something to note for future years.
And it used to be, Ty, you'd have to go to the Pioneer League. And that's where I used to do a lot of my shopping, was in the Pioneer League. And you would find the guys who were drafted, who signed over slot, and who were crushing it at short season A. And those would be like Christian Koss, who was with Colorado, then got traded to Boston. He's one of those guys who I found. I was like, oh, wow, look at him. He's doing everything. And this is, you know, college bat, right? So he's he signs, gets a bit of a bigger deal, and there you go. So anyway, Delvin Zinn with the Cubbies, 24-year-old. So that's to note here. That's 20 stolen bases and a 261 average at high A. At double A, nobody has more than 11. At triple A, the leader is Forrest Wall with Toronto, so Buffalo. He's an outfielder with 11 stolen bases, but he does have a 253 average, which is okay, but no home runs. So this is a potential call-up guy. And if you see Forrest Wall getting called up by the Blue Jays later in the season, assume it's going to either be the result of yet another outfield injury, or they're bringing him up simply to try to swipe some bags. So if we continue to see this go and he's over 30 and he gets called up, that's what we know he's going to do. Yes.
Or a very possible outfield trade, which we've talked about.
Okay. Yep. Yep. That's possible too. So let's get into a little.
And one last thing just to note, and this is something to look at when you're looking at call-ups as well, right? Like Wall is a left-handed bat, and the Jays only have a couple left-handed bats. So if they're to move one of the right field or right-handed outfielders, then Forrest Wall would be a logical one. Josh Palacios was another one that could have been in that conversation, but he's off to a slow start because he's injured. So, just something to note. I just want to talk about that, not about the Jays specifically, but about just lineup composition.
Okay. Now on to injuries, and this actually helps with some of that lineup composition you're talking about. Out in Seattle, Kyle Lewis with a meniscus tear. You make me angry. So I traded for Kyle Lewis when he was day-to-day, and actually traded with Billy B, who took over an abandoned team in a 30-team points league. So Billy B, thank you. Shout out to you for doing your best to take a pretty crappy roster. I think it was the second lowest scoring roster, and you're trying to turn it into a roster full of players with value so that when the season ends and that team is abandoned and hopefully one more team at minimum is abandoned, we can have a dispersal draft and there'll be some valuable players that can come from that. But Kyle Lewis, I was able to get from him in like a 2-for-1 deal, and then it became official. So I'm expecting a 2 to 3 month absence here with surgery. He has had issues with his knee, the same knee already this year, I believe. So it could have been the situation where it was a small or a bruising earlier and that didn't fully heal. So now maybe he has a partial tear. And what they might want to do is just like shut him down, get him right, because they've got Kelnick, they've got Taylor Trammell, who has come back, Ty, after just raking in AAA's come back. I expect him to be better now. I do. I know it hasn't worked out with Keston Hiura, who we'll talk about, but I expect Taylor Trammell to be better. They also have Mitch Haniger doing good things. They've got players. They've got options at least. So Kyle Lewis being out doesn't necessarily screw them. However, prior to being injured, Kyle Lewis was the best Mariner for the week and finally started to turn around the power and all those things. So anyway, Mitch Garver down a testicle. He's out for a while. Strasburg, it's a neck strain, but my gosh, Strasburg injured. It sucks. I really want this to be a short one. Strasburg is a guy who you just have to say 20 starts. That's my expectation for Strasburg. And if it's over that, that's just a bonus. But if you're ever doing rankings for yourself, if you're ever looking at somebody else's rankings, think to yourself, is he going to be there if all he's doing is getting 20 starts a year? That's how I try to rank him. I think he's an elite pitcher, but I think he's only getting 20 starts of the year. And if some of those are stinkers, then that 20 peak I'm giving him is going to be way off. But he's also a 32-year-old dude, right? So we're not talking about some 24-year-old, 26-year-old kind of spring chicken guy who's going to bounce back quickly. Talking about somebody who wants to get himself right before they come back. Kopech, yeah.
Off on that note, really quick though, like it's just something we haven't talked about. That has to bring the conversation of trading Max Scherzer into play. No.
Well, right? Yeah, I mean Washington. Washington's underachieving big time. So I give some merit to that, Ty. I think something would probably have to be like leaked to the media. Do you know what I mean? Like agents behind the scenes, kind of like.
Why wouldn't he
juice the wheel?
Somewhere? Like what? Like he's older. Like what?
He's won his World Series though. Maybe he just loves watching. Maybe families. I don't know. Like maybe the family's set up. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Kopech has a grade 1 hamstring sprain. So I don't know if it's going to be 10 days for him or 2+ weeks, but that's where Kopech is right now. But hey, I'll take the hamstring. This isn't Josh Donaldson, so I'm okay with the hamstring. Nothing with the upper body. Sounds good to me. Jack Flaherty, oblique injury. This could be a long one. This one sucks. Ramon Laureano with Oakland. excuse me, he's out. I don't know why I didn't write in what his injury is, so I'm going to very quickly look. Oh, it's hip. Okay, so it's a hip for him. Lorenzo Cain is on the IL. Miles Mikolas is now, I think they said, backed up a bit into July prior to a rehab start. So that would tell me that we're not going to see Mikolas till August, depending on your fantasy trade deadlines, things of that nature. He might be somebody to target early if you think you're going to get the returns later. I'm not big on Mikolas coming back and kicking it down the stretch for you. But if you're in a points league and pitchers win it for you and he's out, this might be the only time you could get somebody like this who could be, 12 to 14 points on a typical start for him, right? He's going to be up and down. And then Gosman likely to make his next start. But there's a hip issue that he's coming back from. I'm a little concerned about a guy like that, Kevin Gosman with San Francisco, who could have a re-aggravated injury with the hip and then shut down for a longer period of time. We know San Francisco is essentially auditioning that roster for trade, and if they start to slip in wins, they're going to start to probably pull the trigger on it. Otherwise, they'll probably keep it together as long as they possibly can. But Gosman with a hip issue concerns me in Dynasty. I'm not going to trade for him if I'm on a championship run. So I think you guys should do the same.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold strategy though for the San Francisco team to take that team potentially into the playoffs and think they're going to win. I don't see how they make the playoffs given the two teams in that division and how much better they are than San Francisco.
Well, and they shouldn't want to add to it, right, Ty? They shouldn't want to add to it the way teams do with expiring contracts, because that means they're giving up those future assets that they are trying to collect. So it's not likely for them to do that. 2
or 3 superstars coming, and they need to build around that core. Like, it's there, and they need to insulate it. So yeah, they absolutely need to trade Gosman and others if they can. In that division, Tatis is another injury that we saw this week. He's healthy and back in the lineup tonight. Or I shouldn't say healthy, but he's back in the lineup.
He's back. And it's concerning. Tatis is concerning to me, Ty. Is he not concerning to you?
Oh, for sure. But I think there's something going on in baseball right now around the whole thing we've seen in the NBA around load management.
Oh, I thought you were going to say diving.
No. I think there's a sneaky load management happening between COVID ILs and the IL and day-to-days. Like, I think they're resting guys, but they're blaming it on injuries. And now Tatis might not be that one, but I do think it's happening across baseball right now.
There's validity to it because we know former players talk about it all the time, right? They get a phantom IL stint, especially guys who are like last man on the roster. Instead of cutting you, we're going to put you on the phantom IL and we're going to try to figure something out. And then if somebody gets hurt, you're back right away. If not, whatever. All right. So that's the bad news. Let's talk about who's hot. Who's hot?
I am so cutting that into a soundbite. That was excellent.
Okay, thank you. So that's at minute 33. So Robbie Ray is hot. For the season, he has completely rebounded from that dreadful 2020 6.62 ERA, and right now he's sitting at a 3.57 ERA with 7 more innings to his name. Only 1 more win, but 3 less losses. So he's 3-2 right now. 69 Ks, nice in those 58 innings. And I'm liking Robbie Ray down the stretch. I'm not expecting Robbie Ray to be game breaker, amaze balls, whatever, because Buffalo's going to be hard to pitch in. Dunedin was hard to pitch in, but he can put it together, and he can also be one of those guys who just gets you 10 Ks. And you're not going to be like, oh, I expected it, right? It's going to be like, oh, he got 10 Ks. Good. Not.
In category leagues, people get lost for the wins and
right.
The ERA, right? Like, you can win leagues with just strikeouts. Like, that's a strategy sometimes. So
when they don't hurt you elsewhere.
Yeah. Robbie Ray's going to get you W's. That Toronto team is only going to get better. They're banged up and still winning. Robbie Ray's a part of that. The strikeouts, like I've said many times on the show, like, he is the all-time leader in strikeouts per 9 in Major League history. So, he is a good guy to own for that reason alone, let alone all the other stuff that he's going to give you wins and reasonable outings, and he's going to give you some quality starts. He's starting to show some length again for the first time in a couple of years, which is excellent.
Now, Ty, here's somebody who has been discussed as a disappointing player. You know who he is because the name's written on the sheet, but in his last 100 at-bats, he has 21 runs, 9 home runs, 32 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 2-to-1 K to walk ratio, a 280 average, a 1,044 OPS. Austin Meadows, ladies and gentlemen. He was never gone, so he's not back. He's just doing things once again. So he does have just under 200 at bats for the year, but he's only gotten stronger over the last month. And I'm so happy to see it. But the year-end numbers right now, or year total, numbers outside of average look great. 882 OPS. Power is back. Stolen bases are lovely to see that he's got a couple. It's only, it's only 2, but I don't need him to steal 15 bases to be Austin Meadows.
The only thing I'm a little concerned about is the strikeout rate right now, 57 strikeouts and 192 at bats. So we're creeping up on 30%, right? Like we're not all the way there yet, but we're flirting with it. That's the one thing I'm looking at for him to see some improvement, because other than that, I'm with you. Like the numbers, the production are happy. This is very much a Tampa Bay guy. Like, cool, you strike out when you get out, no problem. Do you hit dingers? Cool, we like that. So, definitely can help your fantasy team win, not scared of it. I just think what that indicates to me is might be a little bit of a streaky player, right? We could see these red hot stretches from Meadows where he wins you several weeks in a row and then disappears, which is what we've seen so far this year, right?
I was going to offer up this theory, Ty, that Austin Meadows is a slow starter, because you like to be slow start, slow finish, focused. So that's what I was thinking for him, which is why I mentioned the last 100 at bats, because I thought that was kind of maybe what had happened, because there was so much talk of Austin Meadows and Tampa Bay and how things were going to work. And we were saying, well, Austin Meadows is one of the lucky guys in Tampa Bay who's not going to be platoon. He's healthy. He's starting. And the fact that he's DHing is great for health. So let's take it. Let's just make sure he's also appearing in the outfield. And as you had said, I think it was last week, potentially at first base down the stretch. Like get him around the field here and there. But let's make sure that Austin Meadows is just healthy and doing his thing. And Tampa Bay's rolling right now.
Take a little bit of a step forward on what you just said about the seasonality of Austin Meadows. Like OPS April 916 is career numbers. 916, May's 1072. So May, we're just ending May, is his red hot month. That's his best career mark. June then drops off 638, then 786, 777, 924 in September. So,
all right, we'll have to watch for that then, right?
Yeah. Like that. And that's kind of getting to my point. Like as the pitchers get better again and they make the adjustments, he's a little slow on the recoil, which suggests some streakiness, right? So that's what I'm kind of looking for at this point to see if he breaks that trend.
Well, lucky for us, Ty, pitchers are just consistently getting hurt this year. So we may not know starting rotations in September, but we will know some players who just need to be able to hit them. So anyway, next guy up here is Peyton Smith. We've talked about him. I'm sure he's a popular guy everywhere, but I thought this note was kind of interesting as well. In the last month, 306 average, 816 OPS, and the power is good, but not good. For the year, it's been 5 dingers, which sounds okay. But we're not at the point yet where we can start to say on pace for. I want to wait till we're somewhere around 80 games. So we need a couple more weeks. So teams are starting to hit that 80 game mark. But if I was to play the on pace game with Peyton Smith, he's on pace for under 15 home runs. And he has that empty-ish average simply because he's leading off. So he doesn't have a ton of RBIs. He's got 21 RBIs, 33 runs though. So that's he was leading off. That's his big thing. Now that he's been moved around the lineup a little more, Starling Marte is back. I think he's going to continue to get moved around.
Starling Marte's no longer in Arizona though.
What?
But what? Starling Marte's in Miami.
Oh gosh. Who am I thinking? Who just came back with Arizona?
Peralta, Christian Walker.
I don't know. I'll figure it out. I looked earlier and I was like, they're going to move around.
But on that note, like Christian Walker is probably the guy you're thinking who is back at first base. But one note that will recoil that a little bit is that David Peralta is maybe one of the most likely candidates in the outfield to be traded in all of Major League Baseball. So I think he will open up a spot for Peyton Smith again.
Ketel Marte.
Yes, Ketel Marte also back. So you were close. Marte,
yeah.
I thought you were talking Starling, who used to be there. So my bad. But yes, so lots of movement ahead of Peyton Smith. He's still young enough that like he's got a lot of career ahead of him. So I still expect him to kind of be a 270, maybe like an Alex Rios, maybe with just slightly less average would be a good comparable.
So for everybody who's outside of Toronto,
or Chicago,
Rios is was a good baseball player who was hated because he got this contract that nobody thought he deserved. And as soon as he was put on outright waivers, and the Cubs just claimed him. So they just got him for nothing, got him for his contract, and perfectly serviceable Major League Baseball player. So next guy up here is Ty's guy, Tyler O'Neill. In 8x8 format, I'm just looking right now, Ty, he's ranked 112th on the season, and that's missing a lot of time. 128 at bats for him on the year. And to put things in contrast with Peyton Smith, he's got around the same production with RBIs. He's got 26, runs 22, but dingers, he's already got 12, 5 stolen bases. It's just this refusal to take a pitch and this mustard he likes to throw on everything. So he's striking out. You're talking about concerns with Austin Meadows, major concerns with Tyler O'Neill, 47 strikeouts and 130 at bats. Woof, buzz, woof. But otherwise, he's still getting it done.
But you know what? Like, I've said this to a lot of people. Like, for me, like, and I'm obviously not in the same category here, but like when I play baseball, we joke about it all the time. If I get to 2 strikes, it's over. Like, I'm a dead red guy. You throw it over the plate and it's anywhere reasonable, I'm hitting it. But if it's a good pitch, I'm out. Right. And there's something to be said about that. Like, if he's hitting mistakes, then that's good. Right. Hitting mistakes, you will be a good baseball player at the professional level. It's when you miss mistakes that you end up sucking. So I don't care if somebody strikes out 200 times, as long as they hit mistakes. Adam Dunn made an entire career out of hitting mistakes. Right.
And he got paid handsomely.
Correct.
4 years, $40 million deal. So Ty, here's the next one. Kyle Tucker with Houston. He was an interesting, controversial type dude. You know, he didn't have this great rookie season. Things weren't awesome. He didn't have a great hot start, whatever, for this year. But I'm just looking really quickly here in his 2020 and 2021 combined. He's 408 at bats. He's in and around 70 runs, close to 80 RBIs.
Hitting 6th, by the way.
20 dingers, and this isn't a full season, so all of these numbers would go up. K to walk is right around 2-1, and not unreasonable. He's got 80 walks in 400 at bats, so about 20%. Like, perfectly fine young guy to plug. What was that? Yeah, to plug and play. Say it 3 more times. In an effective Houston lineup, although aging. He is going to be able to go into your fantasy lineups and be part of that, you know, turn around, churn and burn, start him every day guy. You know, you're not moving Kyle Tucker. He should be one of those few untouchables in Dynasty. Correct. In my mind, because everybody's devaluing him right now because they're expecting the 310 average, which is just not necessary for all of the production marks I just said. He's an 80-80 guy with 25 plus home run potential.
And he's hitting 6th. And he doesn't wear batting gloves. So, I mean, that is enough reason alone to own you some Kyle Tucker.
Okay, well, on that note, former teammate Josh Reddick, it's embarrassing that we're talking about him, but this is somebody who signed late. He's now in Arizona, and he's playing. So on the season now, he's got a 362 average, 873 OPS, but nothing. It's empty. No home runs, 4 runs, 6 RBIs, and single digit Ks. So if someone's talking to you, Josh Reddick, in a trade, no, I just wanted to say it because I know it's going to come up. We are at the point now where we're starting to see in dynasty chats, looks like this year's not my year, you know, or like I'm putting this guy on the block, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. Do not have Josh Reddick included in a trade if that is somehow related to value going your way. If it's free and you've got the roster spot, ensure it's free. Like, say, you know what, give me Reddick and it gets it done, but you were already good beforehand, because you just never know. But do not put value into Josh Reddick to do anything right now. Bounced. I just wanted to say, I know that he's going to start getting it. If he has another week of high average, people are going to start to talk about Josh Reddick. Just let's not do that. This is not that guy. Next up, Ty?
Yeah,
or did you have something on him?
No, I'm with you on Reddick. We're talking Kevin Gosman again, who we touched on earlier. The guy's been great. I mean, there's nothing
Oh
to
man,
argue
yeah.
with it. Yeah, so I mean, he's a little injured, banged up right now, but I think us and everybody else realizes that this could be one of those phantom ones where they're just trying to rest him so that he can be part of a trade at the deadline. I don't think there's any other reason. Oh, it's a hip injury. Well, cool. He's going to sit for a couple starts, stay fresh, and be ready for a contender come August.
Yeah, 140 ERA, 83 Ks and 70 2/3 innings and 6 wins, which we talked about. Hard to control the wins, obviously, but you can put yourself in position for them. And when you're Kevin Gosman, you're on a team that's overachieving, they come. But 9 quality starts.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I was concerned earlier in the episode simply because of the hip issue. And as Taya is now trying to say, pump the brakes on that. Could very well be a phantom stint trying to rest him. If that's the case, hold the door, baby. Hold the door. Joey Musgrove, relief pitcher extraordinaire, who came in to save the bacon of one Blake Snell. I think Joe Musgrove's just better than you and I both want him to be. And we're going to need to come around a little bit more on it because he's got a 208 average this year, which we think is going to definitely go up, but 79 Ks and 60 2/3 innings. Well, let's not even say the wins because the wins are kind of irrelevant. 4 wins, right? Four wins, 4 losses. He didn't have anything to do with those, but 4 quality starts. That's a real fantasy stat that should be across the board anywhere. I heard somebody talk about they want to get rid of quality starts in a league I'm in. And I said, why would you want to get rid of quality starts? Let's get rid of wins and losses if we're going to do that. Mm-hmm. I'd rather get rid of the negative in the loss and get rid of the win because the pitchers can't control that. They can control the loss in the sense that they can pitch well, but they still can lose 1-0 or 3-2 or something like that and pick up a quality start. But let's give the quality start and get rid of the win. Anyway, it's a discussion to be tabled for the offseason, just like that one about giving a full category point for a save and a category half point for a hold. Do you know what I mean when I say a full and a half point tie? It's not a points league, but in our real money auction league, I had brought it up that it would be kind of nice if we looked into that just to give closers more of that because they are hard to come by and holds can be found on the waiver wire. But anyway, Joe Musgrove, good for you, Joe.
Well, really interesting note on Musgrove, just quick.
Yeah.
Hasn't pitched more than 5 innings outside of 1 appearance
since perfect or no hitter, whatever.
Since April 19th. So
I think that was his perfect game or no hitter.
So, but the interesting thing to note is I think what we're seeing is Joe Musgrove is a twice through the order guy. And that's what San Diego has realized is that third one just can't happen.
Yeah, we will dive into this further on because that's one of the things that somebody complained about with the quality starts, wanting to get rid of them. Well, no one's pitching in. Well, that's what makes it valuable. That's what makes the stat valuable is being one of those guys, being tasked to get your team late into the ball game with you on the mound. Somebody else rookie alert, Houston Astro, Louis Garcia, 53 innings this year to tack on to the 12 and a 30 he had last year. He's no longer a prospect worthy guy, but he flew right. Where is it? Where's the rate? He flew right under the radar for everybody because we just didn't have realistic expectations of what Houston's roster was going to be. And anyway, in 53 innings this year, he's got 60 Ks, a 2.89 ERA, 2 quality starts, 4 wins, 3 losses, doing good things. I'm not going to say he's, great, but Jose Urquidy getting hurt helped Luis Garcia, and Urquidy's back and Garcia is going to keep starting and things are going to roll in Houston. I think that lineup's getting stronger as much as I don't want it to, Ty, as much as I bet against it. I'm going to have to realize that Houston might just still be kicking around late in the year. Sub Houston's 500 good. Last year, though. Sub 500 last year, everybody.
Stop trying to not be on the bandwagon.
Sub 500 team last year.
I will say this right now. Houston wins that division running away.
They'll be running away from my boy Ohtani hitting bombs.
Why is he getting traded to Oakland? Because that's the only way he's going to be in competition for any playoff spot.
Wow. Interesting. In one league, Ty, Ohtani is now right field eligible for me. That changed everything. So we talk about being in the group chats and being a little lippy. So I posted the Billy Madison quote where he catches the ball in dodgeball and says, now you're all in big trouble. And yeah, and I thought that should have got more than like the 2 little likes it got. Anyway, Jordan Romano, one of our homer out guys here, we pegged him as the closer of the future. They brought in Kirby Yates, and I said, well, he's going to get a lot of holds this year, and Yates, boom, Tommy John. So Jordan Romano is rounding into form with 7 save holds on the year, which ties his production for last year. And in 19 2/3 innings, he's also mustered 3 wins, which is really interesting, 26 Ks and a 183 ERA. He's a little shaky to watch on the mound. It's not like when he walks up, you're like, all right, we're going to shut her down. He also has a very unique wind up and everything for himself, like kind of not Kimbrel, how Kimbrel does the hanging arm thing, but Romano does like this big mega like lungy.
Do you know what he is? So I was thinking this the other day, and this is the first time I'm going to say it out loud, so take it with a grain of salt. You remember in the movie Legally Blonde?
It's like, no offense, but is that what's coming?
Yeah, no.
No offense, but okay, sorry. So Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde, the bend and snap, right? He is that as a pitcher.
I don't know what that is.
Well, it was the whole thing where the girls bend over to get the pen, and they bend and snap and try to get somebody's attention. Right.
Okay.
They're trying to play. So he is that on the mound. He's bending and snapping.
Oh,
Just watch a scene.
I know the Reese Witherspoon, right? And she's named. I don't know, man. I've been watching some YouTube videos on how to make lures.
That's what the bend and snap is. It's a lure. It's a bait tactic.
Ooh, well played. Well played. Next on the list is Victor Gonzalez with the Dodgers. Is he their next closer? This year, Ty, he has 14 save holds. Amazing. I don't know where that is on the league lead. I'll have to check that, but not a 133, a 241 ERA, 18 Ks and 18 2/3 innings. He's a get it done guy. So if you are in a save hold leagues, Victor Gonzalez was a rookie last year. He would have started this year as a rookie, I believe. Depends on, some wonky things that go on, like we talked about with Joe Adell, time served, all that crap. But he's a guy who should be there, and is definitely somebody whose value will be on the rise, because it looks like they're just trusting him to get it done. So speaking of guy on the rise, Jake Brentz with Kansas City, with Stamon hurt, with things going wonky donkey there. He has 6 save holds this year, 29 Ks and 25 2/3 innings, and 14 innings last month. He's working. This guy is working. And last week, 4 innings, 5 Ks, no earned runs. So somebody that you can put in. Ty talked about, wins not always being the most important stat. Here's somebody that can come in when you have some risk reward or type guys. You could put a Brentz in, maybe to try to like lessen that a little bit. So if something bad happens, he can go in for the full week. If you have some good things, maybe you continue to roll the dice with somebody else somewhere else. Just giving options for the bullpens, right? These are those bigger leagues. It's hard this time of year to find value. A lot of the next man up scenarios too, right? Romano was the next man up. Victor Gonzalez is. Brent's could be in line for that. Andrew Chafin with the Cubs, 14 save holds as well. 2.13 ERA for him, 25 Ks and 25 1/3 innings. Another get it done guy, has not allowed 1 earned run is what he's allowed the last month. So that's, Cubbies are not trash. We were not high on them this year, but this is what a good team can do, right? They can just make ship happen. This segment brought to you by ShipStation. Make ship happen. Not officially a sponsor.
I don't even know what that is. So.
There's a murder podcast I listen to called Case File, and they do this thing called ShipStation, and I think you ship things. I feel like they owe us money now. We've talked about it.
Yeah. We got impressions for them. There we go. Next on the list is Daniel Bard, which he was ironically picked up in our home league today. Archie Bradley was dropped. I don't know if you caught that one, Robbie, while you were paddling down the river.
Nope.
He went there, and Archie Bradley's now a free agent. But speaking of irrelevant relievers, Ryan Tepera, also in Chicago, was also ironically picked up in our home league today. These guys are trending, right? So
why?
They're not completely
That's not why they're on this list.
I know. That's why.
Just in case anyone's wondering.
But I know that Robbie was on the water today in his canoe, so I know that he doesn't know these things. That I just saw them because I was not on the water today. Thanks for the invite,
several hours. I was on the water today canoeing. But sorry, so Tepera, 2.45 ERA, 30 Ks in 25 and 2/3 innings, 9 save holds. We talked about him in the offseason as a perfectly viable relief pitcher. And again, he is. And in 8x8, he's ranked 107. So this is a guy who just helps you, right? He doesn't.
Nothing but excellent in his years in Toronto. So,
Yeah.
like, you know, other than the injuries, which is what has kind of made him a forgotten man in Chicago as well, like, he's good. Like, you know, I don't expect him to go 5 outs at any point in time, but for an inning, I'm good. For a 1.1, maybe, right? Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with Tepera. Good slider.
Yeah. And if you are in a save hold leagues, which we have had a few people talk about with us a little more, some keeper leagues as well, there's no point in valuing closers when holds are valued equally. So put as little value in them as you can. And if you are one of those guys who's like, well, I just like to have, I like to have that Brad Hand guy. I like to, like previous years, that Craig Kimbrell, and then current year, Craig Kimbrell. Like, you have to understand the volatility of that. So you can do that for sure. If you've got 4 relief pitcher spots, or, 2 RP spots and then 2 pitcher spots, so you could possibly stack 4 closer types. I would not do more than 2. It's risky. I've done it in Dynasty. I've been burned with Ozuna. I've been burned with Giles. It doesn't matter who it is. They all get hurt because that's what happens when you're throwing that velo, your body really struggles with it. So anyway, here's the final one, Ty, because we're just going to go back. We're going to be Zach Veen trolls. That's what we're going to be. So Zach Veen in low A, 87 at bats. Everybody ready? Everybody ready for this highly touted guy? 230 average, 691 OPS, 0 home runs, 12 RBIs, which is fine, but 14 stolen bases. Ty, why is Zach Veen stealing so many bases?
I mean, he's young. I mean, he's 19, right? They're like, kid, get out there and run, right? I mean, that's what, baseball is. Like, I'm in an over 30 league. Nobody steals bases, right? So, there's a reason for that. We're old and slow. And Zach Veen is still young and fast. So this is number that decreases. I mean, we've seen 80 stolen bases in minor leagues in the last 10 years, right? So, this is not a number I'm concerned with. The only thing that would concern me is strikeouts. And I don't know that they're alarming yet for first start. And I got to imagine, Colorado, with their expertise in developing outfielders, is probably making some adjustment to his swing, I would bet. Whether they should or not is a different conversation, but there's logically an adjustment here. And you have to remember too, this is a high school bat that missed the opportunity for good summer ball last year before the draft. So in his lead up to jumping into the pros, he missed really important at bats against high velocity. And so, there's some recoil that's going to come from that. And that's what we're seeing here with Zach Veen. So this is absolutely, and I put it up on the screen before, this is a buy opportunity for me, right? People get a little worried. Veen is years away, right? Like, if you're looking to rebuild, like, this is a good guy to go get right now. And you can probably buy him lower now than you have since he's been drafted. And if you want to wait a little bit longer, that value will probably get lower, but there will be a moment in time where that turns, and it's going to turn very quickly. So just be careful here when you decide to buy. For me, I'd rather buy just before the bottom, hoping that I get it close. Let's assume it's this.
Yeah, and not to be too unfair to Veen, not yet having any home runs. Austin Martin, who was drafted 5th overall, with he's in AA right now, New Hampshire with the Blue Jays. He hit us first tonight. So
nice.
It can come slower for people, but at the same time, Martin's on the board, Veen is not. So who's cold or whose value in Dynasty might be going down a little bit as we see Francisco Lindor. Ty, I would like to tell you that Francisco Lindor has had 400 plus, his last 400 plus at bats. His average has been below 240. His OPS is right around 700. And the K to walk ratio is fine. It's a little better than 2-1, but he only has 10 stolen bases. He only has 40 RBIs, and he only has 55 runs and 12 dingers. Francisco Lindor has not been a very good player for one calendar plus year. 4-ish months, 5-ish months. It doesn't matter. Baseball months. I'm not a big fan of what Lindor is doing right now. And I'm considering a big shift with him because he doesn't seem to be able to do anything good. And this might just be him being a Met now, but it was also J-Ram 3 years ago with Cleveland, right? He was good, he was bad, then he was good. Can Lindor do this? No, I don't think that's reasonable. I think Lindor's taken a step back.
Well, I don't think he's the top 5 player that some people may have thought he was a couple years ago. I definitely don't think he's that guy, but I will say this, and I talk about this quite a bit. Changing leagues matters. Seeing new pitchers matters. Lindor's still in that window. I expect it to last the majority of the season. I'm looking.
Okay. So you think this is a full-on down year, but a bounce back to come next?
Yeah,
okay.
Like if you have an interested buyer, sell. If you're in win now mode, if you're not ready to win, you're holding. And if you're farther away from winning, he might be a good buy because you could bounce back in a year's time and you could sell him again. So, it's one of those things that it just depends on where you're at, but he'll be back. I just don't think he's going to be the superstar. He's just going to be well above average.
Okay. Well, speaking about not the superstar, Keston Hiura, it's just, oh my gosh, just fallen off a cliff here. It has been ugly the last now we're talking last 300 plus at bats, below 200 average. K to walk is like almost 10-1. Oh, it's rough. It's rough. Everybody, it's rough.
I don't like if we rewind a ways back about 2 years ago, Robbie, you might recall Keston Hiura terrifies me. He has a hitch in his swing. I've been concerned. I'm still concerned. And I talked to an owner of Keston Hiura today about Keston Hiura, and he asked, what do you think he's going to be? And I said, listen, there's a chance he could figure it out. If this particular team's not in a great situation, they're rebuilding. So I said, what do you have to lose? Hold all day, right? But if you're in championship mode and somebody wants to buy, get him off your team ASAP.
Yeah, so I'm in a championship mode in one league, and Hiura, I just in that same league I just picked up Kyle Lewis. I made a 2-for-1 trade specifically so I could put Keston Hiura on my bench, and he would be like the last guy on my bench because he can't go to my minors because it's a contract-based league. So that's exactly what he's going to do for me, and I'm going to let him try to figure it out because it's contracts, and I had him as a rookie. His salary is still low. It's $2 million this year. It'll be $4 million next year. I can afford that on my team. However, like you said, he's not worthy of it if my constraints were different. He would have to be a person I would look to deal for, somebody else. So anyway, here's a good one. Cold value going down. One of these, another like a we told you so kind of things. Matthew Boyd. Last year he had a 6.71 ERA. The last month he has had a 6.08 ERA. The Ks are always good. He's always, a K per inning type dude. He was last year. He's been a little bit worse this year, but he's picked it up over the last month. 26 2/3, 27 Ks. But the ERA is terrifying. Quality starts are not there. He's got 5 on the year. 4 of them were in April and 1 in the last month. So Matthew Boyd Pumpkin has turned, and I already was backed off of him in Dynasty and everywhere else. He is one of the guys to me that I think Detroit blew their opportunity, 2 years ago at the trade deadline to get something for him when he had his turnaround, and then he was just garbage after that. I don't know what he needs to do to be better, but he's not going to figure it out where I have him anywhere because I'm done with Matthew Boyd. And I think if you want to be a better team, you need to be done with a guy like this who can have those blowups. And Detroit's just going to throw him out every 5th day. He's going.
For me,
you're not getting relief.
I'm holding him a little bit longer. And the only reason for that is I think he's a very reasonable trade candidate. And
so new environment in MLB. That's what you're hoping for? Okay.
Yeah, like I could see him in St. Louis would be a really good fit. Big ballpark, not going to get beat up by the home runs. Good team, overall.
Okay.
So has the assets to get him. So I'm going to hold him until he gets traded to somebody like that. And then
that's a smart strategy. So to your point then, Ty, I think it's a good one. You have the scenario of Robbie Ray last year, right? Once upon a time was good, was coveted in Dynasty, and then it seemed like the wheels fell off. And if you were in contracts league, you had a big contract more than likely, and nobody wanted him. And then he ends up in Toronto. And although it's not clean when he comes to Toronto, they're doing something. He then resigns, and now we're starting to see not like an ace, not that peak guy that we saw, but we're seeing a perfectly good SP3-ish type production out of a guy. And so you're assuming that could be Matt Boyd. Is that what I should take?
I mean, Matt Boyd has a 3.9 ERA this year. Like,
for the year.
Give him some wins, and all of a sudden he's a very reasonable starting pitcher, right? So, I have zero issues owning a guy with a 1.17 whip. The strikeouts aren't there, but like the inning count is decent. The ERA is decent. The win-loss total is what's killing you. So, as long as you don't need the strikeouts, like he's a good target to own, especially if he gets traded. And I talk about this all the time, Robbie. Get him before he gets traded. They're huge assets that their value skyrockets after. So go get him first. And Matt Boyd's a perfect candidate.
Well, maybe it's a good time to very briefly just discuss the fact that Alek Manoah did not actually have an amazing second start. Everybody was over the moon. Yeah, everybody was over the moon for the start, like the first one, Yankee Stadium. And then the people that wanted to hate him said, well, look at how crappy the Yankees lineup was. True. It's a bad Yankees lineup right now. However, it doesn't matter who you face in your pro debut. You got to get over yourself in your pro debut. And then there is a lineup to deal with after that. And the fact that he had to go into Yankee Stadium and blah, 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 the lineup I think is kind of irrelevant. Now in the second start, he had a bad inning and that was about it. Everything else seemed fine. But the talk has been the talk of the town, the fantasy baseball dynasty community town, and all the hundreds of industry people who are in the TGFBI league. I am amongst that crew. Everybody was going Alek Manoah crazy, right? He went in fab leagues. He was like 50% of some people's fab. He went for $516 in my TGFBI league, which I think was the second or third highest bid he went for, which is over 50% of the fab that somebody had available. Just not worth it to me to get a player with the risk of going to Buffalo to pitch and only so many professional innings. But in Dynasty, I've already had the conversation, Ty, with a Alek Manoah owner where I have Devi Garcia, and I know the guy's a Yankee fan. I said, hey, after the heat dies down, take another month or whatever. Let's have the conversation about a Devi Garcia or an Alek Manoah trade or something that we can work within those two guys as the centerpiece of it, because his team's not competing. And if Manoah's going to stay up, it's going to help me. Devi might still be a rookie for him next year, and he could get that extra year, blah, blah, blah. I want you to tell me how horrible you think the idea of Alek Manoah for Devi Garcia is.
I would do it tomorrow.
You would take Alek Manoah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't wait because the strikeout.
But it's the other way around. I'm trying to get Manoah for Devi Garcia. And I said to him, well, because I'm not a Yankee fan, I said to him, let's have the conversation in a month. But to your point, you now think Alek Manoah is this like elite super uber dude, and he still has to deal with MLB pitching that's going to knock him down.
But I watched the start yesterday, and there's a reason they left him in as long as they did, because it was a little out of hand towards the end. It was wet. He drilled a bunch of guys, which was awesome. And if you watched the homers, like Jazz Chisholm flipped the bat at the ball and lifted it over the left field fence. Like it was not a good swing. He got a little lucky to knock that one out.
Wind related, right?
Homer. Yeah, that was the 3-run homer. And the laser beam that Aguilar hit was about a foot off the plate inside. Like I still don't know how he got the bat to that ball, let alone kept it fair. And so, it really wasn't that great. It was definitely concerning with the control, but the big thing that jumped off the page at me was the slider was much improved. And I talked about this on Sunday. I was looking for that slider to take the step forward. To me, it did. There's still a little bit of location work left, but it was sharp. Changeup's very, very good. The big thing that I've seen so far from him is I don't see him getting that slider down and away to righties just yet. And it's just because he's throwing it too hard, right? And you can see it in his delivery. He'll get that figured out. And when he does, he is a significantly better pitcher than Devi Garcia.
We shall see.
No, we shall. We've already seen it. It's already there. Like, I like Devi Garcia. I'm not trying to put Devi Garcia down because I like Devi Garcia, right? But Manoah's better. I think the ceiling is higher for Manoah than it is for Devi Garcia. I just wanted to say that because I had that conversation with the guy. It's a good problem to have. And if you have good relations within your league, sometimes you can talk just like straight fandom to somebody like, hey, we both have these guys. They are the prospects on our teams. Maybe we'll work a deal, which doesn't mean it would necessarily be 1-for-1. I might have to give up something else of solid value
if that's how the tide is turning. But at the same time, I'm not going to try to hose him. And he and I have had the conversation that this could just be better, that we could watch and have our prospect, whether they, succeed or fail, at least we would have them instead of, our division rival who also hates the team that our player is on. So anyway, next guy up, we'll go a little quicker here with some of the lesser dudes. Griffin Canning, 40 innings this year, 45 Ks, which is good, 4-3 record, only 2 quality starts and a 5.40 ERA. Ty is hitting the sell button with him. I think with Canning, a lot of it has to do with your roster size and your construction. You probably were hoping he would be as good as SP2, and that was not a great idea to head into the season thinking that. But you're not going to be able to get really anything of significant value back, so it might not be the best time to make that sell.
I have a really simple strategy when it comes to the LA Angels starting pitching is just don't own any of them. It's a very straightforward thing.
Ohtani, Sandoval, Suarez too. Heaney actually had a good start.
That makes me reinforce, like that chorus reinforces what I said previous to that.
Okay, next guy up, Jake Arrieta. He's back with the Cubs, 51 innings this year, 41 Ks, 4.41 ERA, 4 quality starts. If you're wanting some depth down the stretch, Arrieta might not be the worst target cheap. Just keep in mind it's just this year. And I don't know, Ty, would you do this deal if you were in a keep forever dynasty? Would you deal your competing team or your competitive team? Sorry, you get to Jake Arrieta and you give up our next guy, Cole Irvin. Would you make that deal? You have Cole Irvin, you trade him for Jake Arrieta rest of the season, and you're obviously giving up Irvine's, everything he can provide you beyond this year.
Yes, because I don't think Irvin's that good. I think he's a bit of a mirage right now, and I think Arrieta. I'm betting on the Cubs fire sailing. So that's part of the reason I'm saying yes to this. Very similar to what I talked about with Matt Boyd. Arrieta would be a very good addition for a competitor. Even if he ends up in the bullpen in the playoffs, he would still be a good addition.
And just so we're all aware, 63 1/3 innings for Cole Irvin, 45 Ks, a 4.12 ERA, 3-7 record, and 5 quality starts. Doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound terrible though. But it has slipped the last 2 weeks, 15 2/3 innings, only 6 Ks, 0-3, 7.47 ERA, no quality starts. So it is not going Irvin's way. The leagues that I have him, Ty, I just straight up got him off waivers because nobody owned him. And that was 2 keep forever dynasties. I was able to do it a 20 and a 24 team league. So the 24 team league, we have a pretty shallow farm system. It's 12 minor league slots per team, and most teams still have a couple of other prospects just on their bench. So, about 250, 270 guys. So Irvin wasn't necessarily inside that. But yeah, very much pumpkin, it seems, with him, and the potential for him to get bounced from that lineup back to AAA, try to adjust something, see whatever they think they need to do. Maybe he gets a second shot. But again, I like that idea of trading your rest of career Cole Irvine for a impact potential in Jake Arrieta. It's not, domination
in the game.
Yes, absolutely. You're not playing dynasty to be better next year if that's all you're trying to do, or small incremental things. And speaking of that, Kenta Maeda, 42 2/3 innings, 39 Ks. We know the line's been ugly, Ty. He didn't pitch last week. ERA is north of 5, 2-2 record, only 1 quality start. Kenta Maeda, was last year more a mirage? Is this more of what we expected? What's the deal with Kenta Maeda?
I think it's just a blip. I mean, it's a slow start. I think he's maybe been battling a little bit of an injury, maybe longer than he's let on. Given the hot start and given that, he's nearing stardom, I think he felt a little pressure to continue.
Buy, sell, hold, and dynasty. What are you doing with him?
I'm buying.
You're buying?
Because I think his value's down, and I think, he's one of those guys we talked about earlier that gives you that quality start, right? He's going to come out and give you that in a lot of outings because he has a deep repertoire. The strikeout numbers are generally average, but they're generally close to career innings pitched, right? Like he's got a good, balanced 698 career, 760 strikeouts. So, over K per 9, we like that. good whip, 1.13 career number. It's high. It's way above the mark this year, 1.47. So there's in my opinion, no doubt about some regression to the mean for him. Even if he's still mediocre, he's still more valuable than where he's probably sitting in a lot of people's value charts right now.
Okay, so we've got Bruce Zimmerman. This is a deep cut Baltimore Orioles. Very interesting year. His ERA is just under 5, 4.96, 3-3 record, 49 innings, 43 Ks, 2 quality starts. He's very much like a Jorge Lopez, where you need to know when you can start him and know when you should not. But he's very interesting, Ty. His last 2 weeks, which basically just includes a blow up, a 5.40 ERA. But last week, where he had 2 starts, he had 10 1/3 innings and a 2.61 ERA and 13 Ks. So I'm not sure what to do with Zimmerman. Yeah, sell is what Ty's put the tag on for. I think this is just the type of guy that you don't want to have to roster. And if you do, you want it to be in the type of league where you can put him in your minors instead of taking up a bench spot. So if he's a contract, he's a first, you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the easy part for me with Zimmerman is that Baltimore's rebuilding and he's not going to withstand growth of that organization, right? It's not as if he has long tail value. Yep. He is a stopgap and nothing more than that. So that's why this could be the most valuable he ever is, and that's why I'm selling.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good point. I was just going to say he could be the type of guy that we see pop up on different teams when they're in that transition period, and we're like, oh, well, you know, he finds his way to another team, but he actually ends up bouncing around a lot, which a former Baltimore Oriole did, whose name is escaping me now. He's in AAA with Adger Wojciechowski, AAA with the Yankees, I think. And people are like, I think, you know, he's a bounce back type candidate, but that's just not. It's not in the cards. They have a brief period of success, and Zimmerman might be one of those guys who is making little moments count here and there. Next guy up, Mike Foltynewicz. We know what happened last year with Folty. DFA'd, couldn't find work. This year with Texas, 62 2/3 innings. Everybody had high hopes. 44 Ks, 4.31 ERA on the season, but he's been very streaky back and forth. You know, the last month, 5.18 ERA. Yeah. 2 quality starts. Sorry, 5 on the season, 2 in the last month. But Folty for me is just sell. If somebody knocks on the door, I'm going to find a way to get him off my roster. I don't have him on my roster anywhere, but in the scenario that I did, I would certainly be looking for the out. I don't want him rest of season, not in Texas.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute sell without a doubt. No questions asked, no hesitations.
Here's the next one that's interesting. Blake Snell. In 47 innings this year, 5.55 ERA, but 70 Ks. Only 1 quality start, 1-2 record, Ty. We know it wasn't good the last week. We know it hasn't been good the last 2 weeks. 6 2/3 innings, 16.20 ERA, 0-2. What are you thinking with Blake Snell? Is this blip? Is this Blake Snell? We weren't big fans. You're buying Blake Snell. Do tell.
This is a hard buy for me because this is a guy that has nowhere else to go from a down value perspective.
Okay.
But career numbers, I'll just dazzle you a little bit here.
I won't dazzle me.
April, 2.85 ERA.
Okay.
Cool. Very serviceable, reasonable 1.14 whip. But then we get into May, June, 4.5 with a 1.35. June is 5.30 with a 1.63. Again, career numbers.
That tells me he's going to go even worse before he gets better.
Nope. So yes, potentially. So July 2.72, 1.25. August 2.74, 1.17. September 2.93, 1.23. So, you know, there's always going to be some walks in his repertoire.
Yep.
Right. Just because of the fastball up, curveball down mixes. But definitely a guy to buy because the strikeout numbers are still very, very solid throughout his career. There's enough of a track record here, and it's an absolute buy for me because of the team he's on. He'll be fine. Go get him where you can.
Okay, Jamison Taion is the last guy on this list in 47 2/3 innings, 55 Ks, 5.10 ERA. He's had a lot of good, a lot of bad in his season. This is exactly what Patrick Corbin did when he came back from Tommy John. I'm thinking the same thing here. Jamison Taion, I like. He's a buy for me, but he is an ugly-looking buy. Ty, what's he for you?
I mean, I've never been a Taion guy because of the injuries. I've just always stayed away. So this one's hard for me because I don't really have a dog in this fight. and I've never really ever considered buying him. The concerning thing for me is high exit velocities, barrel rates way up. League average is 5%. His barrel rate right now is 11.5. Right, so I am concerned. I've heard a lot of things about spin rate and use of the curveball and all this other crap, but I just, on that curveball, guys are hitting 308. And so I talk about this quite a bit. Like, if you can't get guys out, if you don't have that swing and miss pitch at major league level, that's always going to catch up with you. So I don't think he can handle the big workload. He's not getting guys out. I'm out, I think, is where I'll leave it. So I'm selling. Hold would be the closest I would be to being aggressive with him.
Okay. And I'm just looking at it and thinking, pitcher who's going to stick around in New York and things could get better for him. I don't think they're going to, don't think the bottom's going to fall off for him. So just the last few little notes here, call ups. We've got Chicago Cubby slugger, Patrick Wisdom, crushing it right now. Somebody that we did mention on the Sunday show, Sky Bolt, Ty, you would like this, is up in Oakland. He is the guy who came up in the Ramon Laureano IL. So Sky Bolt, love the name. He's up. And Peter Solomon, Houston starting pitcher. He was up. He did not get to play. And then he was sent back to AAA. Interesting.
He's been the shuttle guy this year. But I do think Solomon has enough stuff to be a major league starter at some point. And whether that's in Houston or not, I'm not entirely sure at this point, but I've owned Solomon for many years in several leagues, and I like Solomon stuff. He was a 3rd round pick, I believe, out of a school in nowhere. But I think
so you have the scouting report right in front of you.
I watched.
He was
I watched the video on him a long time ago, and I liked the mechanics. I thought there was upside there. So Pete Solomon is a guy that I think still has some upside. He might be a late arrival, but I think definitely a guy that should be rostered in a lot of leagues.
Okay. And just for everybody to know, Wisdom's not playing tonight, so I can say his line without being out of date here. In 23 at bats, he's got a 4.37 ERA, a 14.58 OPS, 4 home runs, 5 RBI, 5 runs, a stolen base, and 7 Ks to 1 walk. So that's pretty cool for Patrick Wisdom to come in and do that. And that's over. He had 2 at bats last year, but who's counting? And he has been previously a slugger in AAA. So this is the kind of guy who, if he can find, hopefully Chicago's got some AL games next week that he can get some more appearances in. I hope he doesn't get sent back down. And then Robert Duggar, who was sent down with Seattle, is the last guy on the list. And he wasn't anything really big to note, but in 30-team leagues, I know there are some people who, like myself, are hoping he was going to be able to turn it around. And I can see him coming back up at some point later in the year. He might be the type of, fireman out of the bullpen, long relief guy. So that's it. That's a lot of names. My goodness, that was a lot of names. That was a lot of stuff, a lot of value. Hopefully a lot of help for you in your dynasty leagues. Don't forget, you can always hit us up at Dingers Pod, Ty at Tourney Boss, or myself at Robbie Baseball 1 with your questions, comments, concerns. Tag us, tag the podcast. DMs are great, but we also like when you tag us with a question so that we can help you and others can see it, and maybe some others can weigh in too. That would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And that's why you're here. We want to help you win championships. So be sure to share and hit us up on Twitter with questions. And if you are listening on the live stream regularly, be sure to get in here and write some comments, ask some questions live. We love live Q&A, and we want to be able to provide value to you immediately. So it's a great spot to leave it tonight, Robbie. Until next time, it has been Tyler and Rob on Dingers.